hearing what Paul Finebaum said about, hey, this new settlement in the ACC puts schools like Virginia specifically in a really tough spot, makes you wonder, hey, how does at the conference level, what is actually the best way to go about it? Because it seems like appeasing Florida State and Clemson may not actually have been the best, decision by the ACC.
But if you look at what the SEC has done in recent years, they just went out and got Texas and Oklahoma, the premier state school, and that's important to remember. North Carolina is standalone. It's a preeminent university, but it also has good athletics and it used to have good basketball. Virginia doesn't have that, but they do. They are a brand, and I think if you're sitting there with 16 SEC presidents, they would much more likely gravitate to North Carolina and Virginia, who I believe also are drafting partners, to use a NASCAR phrase, as opposed to Clemson and Florida State, which for all their football prowess, and they are the last two ACC schools to win national championships, they don't offer very much in anything. They're the secondary. Clemson is inferior to South Carolina as an academic institution, and then you have the same situation with Florida State. They are behind the other state schools and as well as private schools in Florida. So I don't think either one of them have much to offer. And quite frankly, Greg, I'm not really sure why the Big Ten would want either one of them.
That's tough, bro.
McElroy and Kubalik, ESPN Radio with the credit there. Paul Finebaum. It's a good point, though. When you look at the SEC, and I know that I'm the only a-hole in the room, because, again, how long have I been telling you the SEC is not out for blood to get Florida State in that league?
You're a homer is the first part.
I will just continue to tell you, Florida State and Clemson, they're not overly attractive to most of college athletics. And you look at North Carolina, and again, I will continue to beat this drum. The heartbeat of the ACC is Tobacco Road. And I think the most compelling schools in that league are North Carolina, Duke, and Virginia. As I have been telling you for years now.
Yeah, and I think to that point, one thing that hadn't really, like, it makes sense when you say it, but it's not something that really hit me until it's been talked about recently, that the reason that the heartbeat of the ACC is Tobacco Road is because those were what the term Finebaum used was writing members of the ACC, founding members of the ACC, not members that were added to the ACC.
Not Florida State, who surpassed the SEC because they thought the ACC was an easier route.
Yeah.
To a college football championship.
Yeah, which now has some weight in the conversation.
And I think when you look at who is really attractive, if we look at the SEC, who is really attractive in the ACC? I'm telling you, it's Duke and Carolina. And thirdly, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Those three continue to say it. But I have heard repeatedly that North Carolina wants to go to the Big Ten.
And by the way, to that point, all of you people who say that academia doesn't matter and academics don't matter and, it's all about what you do on the football field. I agree. Winning matters now more than it's ever mattered. I've always said that. But the idea that Paul Finebaum, and love him or hate him, he's still Paul Finebaum, just said in that bite that the Big Ten, he's not sure why the Big Ten would have interest because Florida State and Clemson do not live up to it academically, should tell you everything you need to know about how much academics matter in expansion or realignment scenarios.
I'm good looking, right? Like, I'm an attractive guy.
Yeah.
How many times are people going to say exactly what I've been telling you, hyenas, for how long? Academics matter. It's a lot of money, right? And again, we'll see what happens with the restructuring of education, and academic money matters. You were talking to Ed Scott yesterday about the way that
Alston payments,
the Alston payments are used.
Yes.
Right? Like, academics matter.
Yes.
And so when we're looking at what's like, if we truly ask ourselves, who would the SEC expand with? Memphis or Florida State. Well, they're probably taking Florida State, right? But we're not talking about Memphis or Florida State. We're talking about North Carolina, Duke, Virginia, or Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no question, if the SEC had its way, they'd take Carolina and Duke over Florida State and Clemson every single day.
Yeah, and I think part of it, there's many reasons why that would be the case, but I think the most obvious reason would be that the SEC is obviously the most dominant football conference, top to bottom. They've got that taken care of. And they've been on this train the last 2 years, I would say, of making sure that basketball comes along, and it has. And so if the SEC had Duke and Carolina, I mean, you're just not going to dispute that the SEC is the best college athletics conference in the country. With all due respect to the Big Ten, you're not as deep on the football field, and you're certainly not as deep on the basketball court. And we haven't gotten to the other sports yet. So
yeah, as you guys hit the like button here on the Monty Show, I would just simply tell you that there is no question that football is going to change. Is Florida State and Clemson, Duke and Carolina leaving the ACC now? No, they're not. But if a Super League does not happen, and I think that would be, I don't even know circumstances that would allow that not to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if a Super League does not happen, and I think we'll know that, because this is all 2027 through 30.
Mm-hmm.
So the world will be different anyway. I don't think there's any doubt there will be an arms race to raid the ACC if a Super League does not happen. If college football does not break away into a new entity from the NCAA, I think there will be an arms race to raid the ACC. And at that point, I think Florida State's going to be in a really bad spot. And I just think Clemson's an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Dabo is a weird guy. I think
God's name, image, and likeness.
He doesn't like NIL. He doesn't like the portal.
We built this program on NIL.
Frankly, I think that means that you can't compete in college athletics.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's weird. I think Florida State has not beyond the fact that Florida will fight tooth and nail to keep Florida State out. What is really attractive about Florida State to the SEC? I don't know either, because they already have a huge footprint, or Florida State and the SEC rather. They already have a huge footprint in Florida with Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree that Miami and Florida State are not ideal fits in the SEC. They are not. They don't perform at a high level on a consistent basis. Neither one of them do. You have whatever is going on at Miami with basketball, whatever is it in Mario Cristobal we trust? Not really. Not really, until he can show. Mario Cristobal needs to win the ACC championship.
Right.
He needs to put the Hurricanes in the college football playoff. That's when we can say, hey, but until he does that, no, I don't know how many people believe he can. But when I'm looking at value, North Carolina and Duke make me money. That's the bottom line. Florida State and Clemson make themselves money in the ACC. But do they really compete, especially in a place like Tallahassee, Florida, when you are surrounded by SEC schools already? It doesn't expand your footprint. It doesn't bring you exponentially more revenue. So I don't think they're a great fit in the SEC, Florida State. But why is the Big Ten, again, a conference built on academics and making money? Why is Florida State an ideal fit in the Big Ten? I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll be very interesting to see how all this plays out.
I just think that people thought Florida State was going to leave, or was going to have this real easy path out to greener pastures in 2031. And I understand initially how you may have come to that conclusion, but when you start looking at who would want them and what they'd have to take to get into those conferences.
And where are they a really good fit?
Yeah.
Where is
Where
Florida
does
State?
it make sense?
Florida State's not like I can point to Miami would be an unbelievable fit in the Big 12. Louisville, North Carolina State.
Mhm.
I even think Duke could be a great fit in the Big 12. But you don't have academic partners to run with Duke in plentiful fashion in the Big 12.
Yeah.
You're not an academic powerhouse. If Duke had its pick between the Big 10 and the Big 12, it's not a conversation.
Nope.
Right? I think Virginia Tech, great fits in the Big 12. I think the Big 10 will take Virginia tomorrow if they had the opportunity.
Yeah, see, to me, I think that Virginia's a Big 10 school and Va Tech's a Big 12 school.
I would agree
you
with
look
that.
at both of those, and it's very clear who's going where.
And all I will say is, let's go back to Memphis in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Is Memphis a perfect fit in the Pac-12?
No.
It's not.
No.
It is awkward. It is a square peg in a round hole because of logistics.
But again, why is it that this is even a conversation? Memphis and, the other American schools that we've talked so much about. Well, it's only a conversation because the Pac-12 doesn't have other options. And this is kind of the point. Again, whether it's Memphis in the Pac-12, whether it's this SEC, ACC dynamic that's at play clearly, or whether it's the Big 12. I mean, any conference looking to add a school has to check a variety of boxes, logistically speaking. Travel is the first thing. I think what is the geographic setup? Are we going to have to fly, a ton more to make this work? Memphis in the Big 12? No, you wouldn't have to fly a ton more. That works perfectly fine, right? That logistically speaking, the Big 12 works fine. But the Pac-12 obviously is a whole different scenario. So that's number one. You've got a ton of added costs there. Dr. Scott told us that as much, and we've all known that. And so then it's like, all right, well, if you're the Pac-12, from the Pac-12 side of the conversation, well, you're on the West Coast, man. Who else are you going to go and add? Because you're not going to add back Calford. You don't have a chance to add back the Washingtons and Oregons and all these other schools. So that's why I keep saying, and I saw all the comments yesterday on our channel from all the Pac-12 people listening to Dr. Scott talk about this. Oh, well, yeah, we're still going to add them, and this isn't going anywhere. And it's like, dude, you have to understand you can't just add whoever the hell you want to add.
No, you can't.
There's circumstances that have to play out here.
Hey, real quick, somebody forgot to tell the Vikings they're not a good football team. The Vikings just added Javon Hargrave from the 49ers in free agency. So you're going to have Hargrave, Allen, Grenard, and Van Ginkel across the front.
Dude, the NFC North is becoming maybe not the best division in football. If it's not the best, it's the second best. Like,
jeez Louise, the Vikings got better. And this is, again, and they got Will Freeze. Oh, my God. They're spending money it's endless. And Minnesota is going to be good. So, again, I ask, is J.J. McCarthy your starting quarterback?
Apparently.
Let's get to your comments here. And I really want to, this Memphis to the Pac-12, that's a huge conversation. Because I think if Memphis, Tulane, USF, UTSA, if they're willing to go to the Pac-12, the money's got to be spectacular. Because I don't know any other reason you would do it. I truly do not. Eric and Raleigh used to have good basketball. Yeah, North Carolina. Well, we have not been good. I'm a North Carolina basketball fan, and we have not been good.
They haven't been good, really like the same team for several years now.
Yeah. Kealani, isn't UVA usually the top 10 in the Directors' Cup? They are. I would agree with that. Finebaum is Sankey scrotum.
Okay, cool.
I actually don't think that's biologically possible. I could be
biologics.
Yeah, I don't think scrotums have
biologics
voice boxes.
Human or non-human?
I could be wrong. Eric and Raleigh, none of the ACC schools offer even good value. Well,
that's
let's not
true,
get carried
dude.
away.
See, that's where you go wrong. That's not true.
Let's not get carried away. Wasikowski, UNC Duke leave in 2030, the conference collapses. Well, I've been saying for years, if UNC leaves that conference, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. So, conundrum, SEC is now the basketball conference. Better add UNC, Duke, and UVA. It would be huge to add them. So
I'm not convinced that UVA would prefer the SEC over the Big Ten, though. I think if you're Virginia, you're an academic powerhouse and you have a good basketball team, and you're not really a football school.
I think Virginia is not a football school at all.
So like I understand the connection to the SEC. I get that, but if you're Virginia, I think it would be Big Ten and then SEC if from their side of it.
I would agree. Big Ten and equals Notre Dame and UNC or Stanford. I think, man, it's going to be a long 4 years for Stanford and Cal. I don't even know how else to.
There is no other. That's just what it is. Like,
man, it's going to be tough.
But again, I'll keep saying it because everyone's bandied about whether that was a bad decision to go to the ACC at the time they made the decision. If that decision leads to you getting into the Big Ten, it was not a bad decision.
I would agree. And the pain was worth it. Eric in Raleigh, academics shouldn't matter in the Super League, and they probably won't. If we're being honest, they probably won't. Big Ten in 2030, UNC, Duke, Virginia, and Stanford. Could be. Keelani. Bigger doesn't mean flagship. Otherwise, UCF would be the Florida's flagship. Ain't that the truth? Bigger does not. I agree with that. Loner Phone has decided to join us today.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Good to see you. Boyd Lake, academics only matter when they matter, meaning they get used as an excuse in conversations like this one. I don't think that's the case, Boyd. I think people don't want to talk about academics.
Yeah.
And this was all during the Pac-12 meltdown as well. Every yahoo in the world was like, nobody cares, Marty. Turns out they cared. Turns out they cared a lot.
Well, I just think that, so again, it's this sort of rubric that you have to fit into to get into a conference, right? So like the Big Ten prides itself on academics, right? The Big Ten is a conference that says, hey, like we're really, really strong academically. That's one of their key pillars in describing themselves. So when you look at the Big Ten, I disagree that it's an excuse. It's part of what you have to be if you want to be a member. So like Virginia is an obvious fit because of their academics, right? They share that same, philosophy about academics. And the thing is that it's not like, academics is just 100% solely responsible for everything a school does, but it's one of only two sections a school has. You've got academics and you've got athletics. Everything falls below those two umbrellas. You're either on that side or on this side. And so when you talk about the Big Ten adding schools, the Big Ten doesn't want to be seen to do business with a school that doesn't pride itself on academics or maybe doesn't have as high a standard as most of the other members in its conference. Because if the Big Ten is just out here adding, and again, it's not to slight Florida State, but it's just the reality of it. If you go out and add Florida State or Clemson, schools who you can go out and get an education there, obviously, but they're not these just juggernauts academically, then what does that say about your conference?
But I also think when you look at Iowa State, Texas Tech, Kansas, Utah, like the R1 research institutions, the Big 12 won in expansion in that area.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a list of the like, when did Baylor become R1? 2022? Like, why do you think these institutions are trying so desperately to become R1 research institutions? Why do you think it matters to Arizona State? Why do you think it matters to Baylor that both Baylor and the Baylor College of Medicine are R1 research institutions? Because it makes them more money.
Yeah.
It makes them a hell of a lot more money.
And again, the point remains that athletics in the overall university's budget, the athletics is just one line item.
Yes.
Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like, and that was the other thing that I think maybe people just didn't like latch onto with the Dr. Ed Scott interview we did. He said that Memphis uniquely, their athletic department is responsible for 60% of the overall school's budget, that they have to, as an athletic department, raise 60% of that total budget. So again, that's these one-off situations that Memphis has in their setup. schools have unique circumstances. And that's why I'm saying, like, it's not an excuse. Academics are not an excuse. They are a part of the conversation.
Is Duke an R1 research institution? Is North Carolina an R1 research institution? Yes. Do you think they want to go to poverty programs that are not? No. And this is, anyway, I'm probably too far off the reservation. I'm telling you.
No, I think it just speaks to the point of, again, like with the Big Ten, and the SEC has some of this too, but more the Big Ten.
Yeah.
The Big Ten prioritizes schools who are R1, accredited.
But look at what Ed Scott said yesterday.
Yeah.
Hey, FedEx gave us a huge donation, and we have to go raise our portion of it to get 100%.
Yeah.
Like, Memphis has to raise money. They have to go out and find money. And I thought one of the more fascinating parts of that conversation yesterday was his thoughts on private equity.
Mm-hmm.
What was his answer? I grew up poor. I don't like taking loans without knowing how I'm going to pay them back.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very pragmatic point. Schools like Memphis that are, I think their athletic budget, forgive me if I'm mistaken, is $62 million. Ohio State's got hundreds of millions of dollars, and Memphis is $62 million. We're playing in different,
but still performing at this level in basketball.
Right. And again, I think when you look at why it matters, I think it matters because you look at Memphis as a product, R1 research institution. They have the ability to raise money in multiple different channels. Memphis is unquestionably an attractive property.
I think
Tulane is unquestionably an attractive property.
I think that, and this hadn't really crossed my mind with the Memphis Pac-12 thing until just now we're talking about this. I am genuinely curious if you're the Pac-12, like the R1 thing, R1 accredited universities, I'm not sure that's even a consideration with where you're at with things.
Can it be a consideration?
Can it even be a consideration? And if you're Memphis or, any other R1 accredited school who does really well athletically and is looking to take that step up at some point, that's another reason why you wouldn't want to go to the Pac-12, because again, you've done all this work. Like, I'm not going to pretend to know the entire process off the top of my head about how you reach R1 status, but you've done all this work. You've gone through the process. You've put in all the legwork and the time, only to go to an opportunity that doesn't reward you for that, only to go to an opportunity that doesn't reward you athletically, financially through your athletics. Like, it does not make sense for Memphis or probably really any of the American schools to take advantage of the Pac-12 situation at this time. And that's why I say, like when Dr. Scott plainly says, hey, I haven't talked to Teresa Gould about that one time. It speaks to, hey, like, we're not aggressively pursuing that opportunity, mainly because of, so let me get this right, just off the top of my head. Travel is a problem. You're an R1 accredited university, and I'm not sure that you're going to get your flowers for that going to the Pac-12. Then we got to talk about the college football playoff if Memphis has aspirations of that athletically at some point down the line. And we got to talk about the basketball tournament. Like, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
So that's why I say everyone dying on the hill of, gosh, the Pac-12 is going to go and get these American schools and they're going to get back to, like, I'm not so sure that that's just rubber stamp. Bro.
You added Boise State. Is Boise State an institution of higher learning? No. Fresno State? No. So obviously Washington State and Oregon State are R1, but I just think it's very interesting what you can do, and what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Memphis needs a better situation. They've got to find a way to get into a conference situation. They either need to get the people in the American moving forward, or they need to get into a group that has their shared vision.
Well,
and I think it's going to be tough because I don't know that going to the Pac-12 solves their problems, frankly.
Well, and I don't think that a move is going to happen anytime soon for the schools in the American when you consider the 2030, 2031 timeline in the ACC. Because again, just like we talked about with the Pac-12 stuff before, right? When the Pac-12 melted down, in order for schools to move, all the chess pieces on the board have to be moving. So like an ACC meltdown would be a catalyst to schools like Memphis and their situation getting to bump up into the Big 12. The Big 12 isn't just going to say, hey, Dr. Scott, yeah, it looks like today's the day, right? You got to have a reason. There's got to be a process in place and an opportunity for that to happen. But I do think one thing that's very clear out of that interview is Dr. Scott knows how to talk to people and knows how to build relationships. So what will be very interesting to see is, hey, when the time comes, where do they go?
Yeah, and I think they're a great fit in the Big 12.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, with all the R1s there, with all the money that's being made there, with all the innovation that's being done there, I would love nothing more than to see Memphis bump up. Obviously, their basketball program,
valuable,
without question. I think what Penny's done there, what they continue to do to support that program.
And geographically, it goes without saying
it's a great fit.
Yeah,
it is a great fit. All right, less of us, less of you in stuff. Oak State James.
Okay, now I have to say, yesterday after the show, again, looking at the comment section, a lot of people talked about near TCU comment and all that. So let's see what you do today. Let's see what you do today. Let's see if you can bounce back today. And
Memphis would be a much better fit with the Big 12, but who else do you bring in? I would say Tulane. I mean, Tulane's fantastic, but that's a big step up for those programs. And I don't think it's easy to do that. You're seeing the struggles of a Cincinnati. You're seeing this. So look at Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Houston, another R1 institution.
You feel like Houston's struggling, you would say? I mean, I feel like Houston...
I think there's a big ramp-up period. I look at Utah going to the Pac-12. Obviously, I covered Utah going to the Pac-12, and it's a big ramp.
Yeah.
And it's what's so spectacular about BYU and the Big 12. Now, BYU was an independent. They operated as a P4 even before then, so maybe they're different. But I think it's a big ramp-up to compete from a G5 to a P4. I don't think it's easy at all. I mean... I think Memphis would be a home run ad for the Big 12. I agree with that. Tiger Jeb. Schools without a medical school attached have a harder road to hoe when it comes to big money grants. I would agree with that. There is a medical school in Memphis, but it's a branch of University of Tennessee. Medical research is
massive. Endless.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Jeb, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
UW Van Jim. What are the Seahawks doing? I think the Pac knows they should not expand east of Texas. I think that is a big conversation happening in those circles. Geographically, what's the right thing to do? Because I don't think there's any doubt if the Pac-12 focused on the Rockies West, they could be an absolute dominant brand. But I don't know that they have the perspective required to do that, because they also are concerned about TV money and being able to maximize their media deal if they only stay regional.
I don't know how you come back to being a conference without merging. I'm going to keep saying it.
I don't know either.
I don't know what that process looks like. I don't know how you get to, as the great John David Wicker said, back to 10 teams after this media deal allegedly is going to get done at the end of the month. I'm not sure what that process looks like.
I don't know. For
you to do that when you consider all these different options, man. I'm not sure how you do that.
End of next month, we will have the MOU done for our television deal. So we will know what our TV deal is going to be, who our partners are going to be. I will say this, they're entities that you're familiar with, that you would recognize. We're going to get great exposure, and the really good thing is we're going to get more exposure. It's not just going to be football and men's basketball, but it's going to be all of our sports are going to have the opportunity for this increased exposure. It's going to be increased revenue, which is a big thing for us. So that's really the next big piece. Once we know that, then we can go recruit that 8th football playing member. We need one more football playing member that has all of its sports to meet FBS rules or NCAA FBS rules. And then after that, we'll figure out if we're adding 1, 2, or 3 more schools, and whether they're coming in all of their sports. They might be coming in some of their sports.
Why do people like J.D. Wicker, that's the athletic director at San Diego State, talk off the top of their head? I'll never understand it. It's March 11th and not a cricket coming out of the Pac-12. We'll see. Does that change? Is it happening soon? It might be. Are you moving in the right direction? I believe they are. Will they get a media rights deal? Yes, they will. But you have to kind of find this place where one person is talking. J.D. Wicker needs to stop talking.
Mm-hmm.
Because why put a deadline out there like by the end of March we'll have? I'll never understand it. I will never understand that at all. Jimmy Otson, time to build some truck stops in Memphis. Could be that you can fly over, and stuff. Boise is a JUCO. They only need a 2.25 GPA to be accepted there, but they're moving towards better academics at Boise. I think they are going to have a reputation to overcome. Conundrum. Tulane and Memphis would make a nice Big 12 pair. I think Tulane and Memphis are wildly undervalued.
I think it also depends on when that would happen. It has the Big 12. Would they be some of the first schools to enter the Big 12 in expansion? Would Louisville and Pitt and Va Tech have already joined the conference? And that, again, it's all circumstantial.
Pitt is really interesting.
Yeah.
I just don't think as an athletic brand, Pitt has a lot of value.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about this ad nauseum. West Virginia and Pitt will forever be a great game. But what does Pitt bring to you athletically beyond that? I don't know. And I think that's a big question a lot of people ask. So Big 12 don't want Memphis. I wouldn't go that far. Arizona's struggling financially in the Big 12, but has nothing to do with the Big 12.
Yeah.
Arizona's struggles are not related to being a member of the Big 12 at all.
They are related to awful accounting.
Yeah, in part. USF would be good ad once they get an on-campus stadium and bring back the War on 14 with UCF, and that stadium's coming. So, Tiger Jeb. FedEx made a big play with the sponsorship money for the Big 12 5 or so years ago, and everyone took a huge dump on that. Okay, welcome to the show. But SMU bought their way into the ACC, and everyone applauded. I don't disagree with that.
Who are you, the Joker, dude?
I don't disagree with that. I don't think that SMU has any business being in a power conference.
Yet here we are.
Schemers trying to control their little worlds.
Boise was very close to being R1 in station in 2024, but does it close count? You are or you're not? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. Jeremy Bolton. Harder Road to Hoe was the name of my high school band. I heard that. And you could play a lick on the guitar.
Right.
Okay. Pac-12 needs to expand downward with the Dakota schools in Montana, but they got to jump up. And that's really tough, man. Rock and Rant, San Diego State athletic director should take an internship under the Memphis athletic director. Bro, J.D. Wicker just should not be saying this stuff in public.
And it's not personal to him. I don't think anybody should be talking. I think Teresa Gould should be the one that makes comments about this stuff, and that's it.
Yeah. Yes. Check it out. Be honest to Memphis and Ed that they ain't going to the Big 12. I'm not saying they're going to the Big 12. I said they would be a great add to the Big 12. Maybe the ACC when teams leave and run away. I think that Memphis has a lot of what you like. They have a good TV market. They're good in athletics. They have good sponsorship dollars and support. They have good academics.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis is attractive. I think the next 5 years is going to be very telling. The next 2 years, you better be getting all your ducks in a row, man.
Yeah.
Good God, JD is painful to watch. Yes, he is. TJ Beck. He flies in airplanes. JD Wicker is Rogue One without the success. Dude is a loose cannon.
I don't think we didn't put Wicker. See what he did there.
JD Dicker. The kicker?
Right.
I just glossed right over that. Harder Road to Hoe was the headline after they added a police station on 4th Street. Okay.
How is that a thing, dude? How did this turn into a thing on the show? Like, you guys are incredible some days.
Tiger Jeb certainly understands the way this game is played. And by the way, Memphis is getting 2 Buckies and a few in and outs, so we got that going for us. That's exactly right. I mean,
no, so I just want to point out all the references here. By the way, that's the first reference. By the way, and then you've got the Buckies portion of the
with
conversation,
capital TWO,
right? With TWO,
guys. Listen. We're getting not 1, not 3, but 2 new Buckies. And what we were talking about is we're going to put them inside of an IPF that Memphis is going to build on the upper deck of their football stadium.
Stay hard.
So we're in good shape, FedEx bitches. JD Wicker, I personally believe that U.S. Americans.
Dude, I personally believe
that U.S. Americans are able to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps.
This is fucking America.
I personally believe that we will have a media rights negotiations, signed MOUs and such as in at the end of the month.
This show never fails to deliver.
Such a good troll right there, dude.
It just never,
U.S. Americans.
It never fails to deliver. And I love every one of you professionally.
So good.
Delaric, Memphis to the Big 12 is basketball only initially. Not going to happen, I don't think. They would never do that. That would be detrimental. Norge Coog. This has to be a BYU take. You don't want to have more than 20 schools in your conference. Big 12 has to prioritize ACC schools when it breaks up.
Well, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think in the traditional model, you don't want more than 20. But I think when you start, considering this Super League or new entity that is, being cooked up, if you think about, all right, well, if football, breaks away into its own thing, then having 20 schools or that number, that benchmark can change.
Guys.
20
schools, including BYU, who is the school.
I want you to listen to me.
Because we're the Monty Show presented by the Advocates at theadvocates.com. The best injury attorneys in the business. You get into an accident, you get hurt at work. They're great with workman's comp. The thing I love about the Advocates, they employ empathy, and it's such an important trait on the worst day of your life. And we play the commercials all the time, whether talking to you on FaceTime or iPhone or whatever you need, telephone, in person, online chat, get to the Advocates. There's never a consultation fee. There's never a retainer. It costs you not a penny to chat with an injury attorney right now. 24/7, 365 at theadvocates.com. You've been in an accident, you got hurt, slip and fall, no matter what it is, get to theadvocates.com. So want to reiterate, big changes coming to the show. April 1st, we are going to be moving back to afternoons, 3 to 7 Mountain Time. And I know there are some of you who are not going to be able to join us there. We appreciate all of you who have watched our show and who participate in this show. But starting April 1st, we will be moving back to afternoons to facilitate some other things that we are working on. 4 hours is better than 3. So we're excited to be doing it. And I hope that you'll follow along on Twitter. Excuse me, X. Did you guys see that X got hacked yesterday big time?
No, I did not.
I was trying to figure out yesterday afternoon, like, why can't I access my Twitter account? Why is my live video not playing? Because they had a massive, what X called a terrorist attack on their infrastructure. But all of you who watch on Spotify, all of you that watch on YouTube, obviously, Facebook, TikTok, X, we appreciate your support, and we'll hope you'll join us in afternoons coming up on April 1st. Conundrum, so you are facilitating morning golf?
No.
Could be.